The best 5th edition class of all time? We dig into the Talent and MCDM's new Psionic system.
That's a bold statement.
MCDM Productions has released the Talent and Psionics, a new 108-page 5e supplement detailing their brand new talent class. Psionics has a long and proud history in Dungeons & Dragons, with most iterations using a system that allows players to increase, amplify, or extend certain psionic powers through the use of either points or some kind of other resource system that gradually replenishes. Now, Wizards of the Coast opted not to make a full psionic system for 5th edition, instead making only a handful of psionic subclasses, all of which utilize a pool of psionic dice that can help to amp powers. Because of the history of psionics in D&D, there have been a lot of third-party psionic subclasses over the years, but the Talent might be the best one. Instead of psi points, the Talent uses what, in essence, is an alternative spellcasting system that uses a manifestation dice and a strain system that basically simulates the risk of a psychic's power burning out their body, soul, or mind. Basically, the Talent is a Warhammer 40k psyker instead of Professor X, with the use of their powers constantly threatening to harm their body or even kill them. So, how the system works. Every Talent has access to a list of powers, which are basically the equivalent of spells. Every power of 2nd order or higher has a manifestation score, which players have to account for whenever they manifest that power, which is basically like casting a spell. Now, one quirk to Talents is that they can actually concentrate on multiple powers at once. However, every additional power that they manifest has their manifestation score go up by 1. So if a player is, manifesting 2 powers at once, the second power that they manifest will have a higher manifestation score than if they had manifested that power on its own.
Producer Pete here for a little clarity on exactly how psionics and manifesting work. Basically, each power has a manifestation cost, which you roll your manifestation dice to activate. First order powers are basically cantrips and don't require a roll, but 2nd order and higher powers all require a roll of your manifestation dice. You are trying to roll higher than the order of the power, so for 2nd order powers you want to roll a 3 or higher on your dice. If you roll the same number as your order, so a 2 in this case, the power still goes off but you take 1 strain. If you roll under that number, you gain strain equal to the power's order, so once again 2 in this case. Now, back to Christian.
So the more powers a Talent uses, and the more powerful a power is, the more likely that a Talent will take strain. Now, strain is a new subsystem that's basically like a more complicated version of exhaustion. Every Talent has an amount of strain that they can endure that's determined by their talent level. When a player takes a strain, they can choose whether it manifests as body, mind, or soul strain. Each type of strain has different penalties, and players can choose how the strain is divided between those 3 categories. If a player's strain ever exceeds their maximum amount, the Talent has 2 choices. They can manifest the power and then immediately die without making any saving throws, or they can drop to 0 hit points without manifesting that power, so they can choose whether to go out in an actual blaze of glory or just go unconscious. Of course, Talents can also choose to amplify their powers in different ways, taking strain to add the equivalent of metamagic effects to their various powers. There are a number of subclasses as well, ranging from the pyrokinetic that makes fire with their minds, to the metamorph that can strengthen the body, to resopaths that can manipulate matter. There's also the more traditional psionic classes, like the telekinetic and the telepath too. All in all, the new class seems pretty fun. It's complex, but it doesn't look too overwhelming, and it feels like a good spiritual successor to the classic psionic classes of 2nd edition and 3rd edition. I'll also say, at least at first glance, the system feels a lot more robust than the actual 5e psionic subclasses, and it also feels a bit more empowering than the Pathfinder 2e psychic class, which focuses mainly on amping cantrips for additional abilities.
Producer Pete here one more time to talk about just why we think the Talent class is so good. For one, no class in 5e that we have seen has managed to balance this level of risk and reward so well. You can burn bright and do spectacular things at the risk of possible death, Or you can take a more measured approach and become a workhorse, just constantly pumping out those first and second order powers. You also get more flexibility than any class we can think of in 5e without sacrificing the core identity of the class. You still always feel like you're a psionicist. Each specialization feels more customized than, say, picking your school of magic as a wizard. And depending on which you pick, you can heal, buff, manipulate fate, deal damage, or just control the battlefield. But none of this feels broken. You just have more options, and they are all more tailored to the specific specialization you choose at your second level. They just feel more like a real, fully fleshed out subclass than a lot of the wizard schools do in 5e, and we found that to be incredibly refreshing. Plus, the press your luck style risk and reward mechanic to using and amplifying powers adds an element to 5e that just didn't really exist before. And in a way, we kind of feel like maybe that's what the wild magic sorcerers should have been. The talent gives you a lot of options, but none of it is overwhelming. It's just a nice amount of choice and customization that is often streamlined out of 5th edition D&D. And as fans of Psionics, we think it might be our favorite class in D&D 5e so far. And now, back to Christian one more time.
Now, you can check out the full class and the accompanying supplement, which has everything from psionic magic items to psionic NPCs, by purchasing it on MCDM's website for just $14.99. So, are you going to give the talent a try? Let us know in the comments section.